Welcome back to Shabby Shack Studio, friends. I'm so happy to have you here as we get busy creating air dry clay tags together today. So I started up with all of my supplies there on the screen, and I will add those links for you below. I did decide not to stamp them while they were wet with the black ink. That is something that would be best done at the end. So if you want to make the tags, let them dry completely and then stamp them at the end with the ink, do that. But the clay's too wet to take the ink. So there's a little pointer, leave the ink out while the clay is wet. Okay, so you can see I've simply torn off some of the air dry clay and given it a bit of a massage in my hands before I'm going to begin rolling it out. I have taken a couple of little crochet or knitting hooks there to create a guide. That way the actual clay, the thickness when I do, because I'm actually going to create heaps of these, but the thickness will remain the same throughout. Okay, so that actually makes your job so much easier. So I do definitely recommend you do that. Another little side note is that if you've opened quite a large amount of clay, do pop it into a Ziploc bag or pop it in a bowl with a damp cloth over the top so it doesn't dry out. Okay, you can now move on and grab a cookie cutter, or like me, I ended up picking up this shot glass that we got given for our wedding, as a wedding gift 25 years ago. Never really used them as a shot glass, but they make great little tag cutters. So as you can see, this one stuck a little bit, and something that I did work out along the way, which was really quite simple, is to simply grab a saucer and throw some like all-purpose flour in it, and then pop the glass rim side down into the saucer in between cutting, and then it didn't stick. So there's another little trick for you. As you can see, once I've got it out, I just give the edges a little bit of a tap just to soften them and kind of give it a nice shape. And then I've grabbed a piece of this Hessian that I had just laying around the house, and I'm going to use that later to add in a nice texture. Now this is an option, it's not something that you have to do. Okay, so don't get too worried when you're cutting them out if they're looking a little bit rough. We are going to refine them at the end, so don't get too stressed about that. Okay, and any clay that we're not using like this, we're going to re-roll and roll back out again, so we're not going to have lots of waste, so don't worry about that either. Now you will note that this clay is quite damp, so do keep some baking paper handy because you're going to need to change that sheet if you're rolling out continuously and making quite a few. Okay, you can also see that I've started with 9 or 10, which is a great number because I am going to stamp mine, so I need to create the individual label, which takes a little bit of time. You can see that I've flipped them over onto this nice little piece of Hessian, and I'm just really carefully rolling over them again with the rolling pin really lightly. I don't want to make them thinner. All I wanted to do was actually pick up that pretty Hessian. And another little trick that I worked out, because I did make so many of these, is that while I had my clay rolled out between the guides, in the end what I decided to do is just throw that little piece of Hessian over the top and then roll it out while I had it there, right there in front of me with those guides in place. And that way I didn't actually change the thickness, but it did create a nice pattern with the texture, which is what I wanted. Okay, so you can also see that some of them kind of had a little bit of a crack in them here and there, and that's because I did make mine quite thick. It's for me, I wanted this rustic look, so I wasn't concerned if they weren't perfect. In fact, them not being perfect was part of my my intention. So I then created these cute little stamps. Like you can see, that they're so sweet and so simple. I simply went to a craft store and picked up these really inexpensive clear stamps, and I chose them specifically because I really wanted the lettering to be small. You could get something from, say, like a cake making place, but the lettering is a bit larger, so I did really particularly want the lettering to be small. And in this case, I actually picked up 2 sets so that then I'd have extra E's and L's and that kind of thing. Another little note is that the silicone doesn't want to stick to that little grid, that little clear grid piece very well after you've done a few letters. So I picked up just one of the kids' craft sticks, the glue stick, and I added a tiny bit of glue, just kind of dab that on the back of the lettering as I position them all, and it was so much easier to create all the names of the flour and sugars and all those kind of things for my kitchen. Okay, and last up you can see they're all dry here. You can see they've gone nice and white. I picked up a super fine sanding block that you can get from any hardware store and literally just sand it away gently front and back. I made the hole a little bit larger with my craft knife, just rotating that gently. Brushed off the excess until I could see that I was really happy with everything and how it was sitting, and just really quite enjoyed the process. It's cathartic going from one to the other to the other to the other. It was really fun and simple. Last up, I actually had some clear varnish spray in an actual bottle, and I gave them a very light spray just to seal them because they're going to be in the kitchen. And then grabbed some jute twine I had handy and threaded them with a nice long string so that I could tie them around some jars and things like that in my kitchen. Made it so super easy to label all my storage. I can take my tags off if they're not in use. I can throw my glass jars in the dishwasher. User friendly, family friendly, love it. So I hope you've enjoyed this one with me today. Super easy, budget friendly and fun. And I love having you here, as I always do. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share it with a friend if you think they'd be interested too.